What you're looking at is a graph from the last 2 weeks of my second brain. And my second brain is essentially what I use inside of all of my AI work. The old way is doing things inside of ChatGPT or Claude on the browser. The new way is having your second brain connected to everything you do, from your business, from your tasks, your ideas, your meetings, your projects, and it should all be updated live every single day. And the reason that this matters so much is because AI becomes so much more useful when you're actually providing context to it. And it becomes even more useful when the models upgrade. And with that, we have had a significant upgrade in model quality with Claude Fable 5 coming out. This is the first Mythos model from Anthropic, and it is incredibly capable. It's by far the most powerful model on the market and in the world today. And I have been basically the last 48 hours, all I've been doing is just test driving it, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. And it's been very interesting. And as you can see, the benchmarks, it blows away even Opus 4.8, which is a very capable, really, really good model. But in this video, what I want to explain to you is why the second brain is so important when it comes to maximizing the output of these very capable models, because these models are only as capable as the inputs that you give them. And so when we think about it, we need to have something that is just like this graphic. So it's your life and your business. So it could be your projects, your clients, your tasks, your meetings, your business operations, your personal life, your ideas. For me, it'd be content. Maybe it's other things for you. But this is so important. This is what feeds into these incredibly powerful models. And it should always be feeding into them, and it should always be updating multiple times a day, 24/7. So think about it like this. If you have this second brain and you have an AI operating system, which we'll talk about, the more powerful the model gets, the more effective that operating system and that model gets. So before, I was using Codex, I was using GPT 5.5 extra high, very, very capable model. But now we have an upgrade with Claude Fable. And so with that, we can plug that directly into the work that we're doing and the second brain and everything that we have that we're doing. And it basically becomes better reasoning, better context use, stronger automation. And that's the biggest thing that I've seen so far with Fable is the context use. It's able to digest it so much better. It can think more clearly, more coherently without actually getting overran and getting confused with all of the minute details, because there's a lot inside of my second brain inside of Obsidian. So the point that I'm making is the upgrade is the system. It's not just the model. So if you think about it, your typical chatbot, you're putting in a prompt and you're getting an answer. So this is one shot. There's very limited memory. There's no follow through, and it's not even going to recall that actual system in that chat that you just had. But with the AI operating system, it becomes just that, an actual operating system. So you have your context. The context lives inside of Obsidian, which is what I was just showing you earlier. So this is where all of my context lies. If I wanted to go to some of my files, you can just see, this is just from the last 2 weeks. And so that's where the context lies. The reasoning lies inside of the model. So that's where our upgrade really comes in handy. So the reasoning is increased thanks to Claude Fable. Now, the actions, this would be skills, tool use, things that the model can actually go and do for you. And then we have updated task and notes. So every time we perform a new action, every time we have a new conversation, every time we close a new deal, every time we have a new idea, that is updated automatically. And then there's a feedback loop. So multiple times a day, I have automations run that basically update the context, actions, notes, everything. And so it's this constantly evolving, constantly operating system that for me is always improving and always learning more about myself. And why this is important is because when you have an AI operating system, it understands the full picture. So it can take actions and it can adapt over time, and it can learn and improve, like I've been saying. So ultimately what I'm talking about is this is continuous, it's integrated, and ultimately it's very, very effective. So this is kind of an idea about how I think about this architecture, because this is really what it is. We're architecting a system that acts as our second brain and acts as, having my life and business and everything in between, travel context, everything crammed into one. And so basically it's not a single tool, it's not a single app, and it's not a single prompt, but it is the structure around my work and life that lets AI understand me and how I operate. And so I've been building this for months at this point. And not just because Claude Fable launched, that has made it way more effective. But basically, we have raw inputs. So this is the base layer of the system. So every meeting that I have, every task that I need to complete and do complete, every single file that I update and that I bring into the picture, every idea I have, every transcript, whether it's from a meeting or just from me streaming my thoughts of consciousness into a device, and client work. These are the raw inputs. But then it goes to the second brain, which is more notes, memory, knowledge, and context. So it takes all of this and organizes it inside of the second brain. But from there, we want to bring it to the reasoning layer. In this case, Claude Fable. So it has understanding, it can help prioritize, it can help plan, and it can act as more of a co-founder and an assistant than just an actual robot. It can actually give opinions, it can graze all the data, it can understand it, and it can tell me more than a chatbot actually could. In terms of automations, well, that's where workflows comes in, which is very important that we'll talk about. That's where task routing comes in, follow-up triggers, content generation. These are things that we can automate so that we can free up our time to work on higher leverage and more important opportunities. And then last, we have outputs. So this could be daily plans, video outlines, project updates, follow-ups, decisions, etc. This is essentially the architecture that I'm building for my life and for my business, and it's what I run everything on. But there's one thing that I want you to take away from this. It's that AI and your systems can only get smarter when context is captured. So when you're in a chatbot and you're doing prompts, it's not really remembering as much as you think it would or as much as you'd want it to. It's actually a very limited memory system. It works okay for big things, like it knows your job, it might know where you live, but it doesn't actually know a lot about you. So you need to be updating the context of your system with essentially every action you're taking, whether that's meeting notes, random ideas, videos, emails, research. It all should go into the second brain. And I can show you once again what mine looks like. If I'm back in Obsidian, you can see, I have these big folders, but then inside of them, I have wikis for clients. Inside of these, there's thousands of documents and information. I have raw information, just call notes. I have a to-do list with immediate to-dos and longer to-dos. I have outputs that I need. I have YouTube assets. There's a lot of things you can cram in here. The wiki and the raw are the most loaded, but this is where my context lives. So all of these things, emails, client calls, tasks, videos, they're all where you just saw, and they're organized in a way that the system can easily reference and skim through and understand. And with that, you have what's called usable context. So I can actually go in and say, hey, based on the conversation I had with so-and-so yesterday, what should the next steps be? If I did that inside of Claude or ChatGPT in the browser, like on the internet, it wouldn't be able to give me a very good answer. It might pull very limited context, but it wouldn't be able to give me the specifics of the call or how it relates to other calls that I've had and so on and so forth. So the system should get smarter every single day when you use it. If it's not, that means you have a problem. But in terms of, what actually consists of the second brain, that is the important part, the context. But the model, when you plug in the right model, it can reason across the whole map. So with Claude Fable, what it's able to do is take in a lot more of this context and information and be a lot more intelligent in the way that it thinks through it. So it can understand decisions, projects, people, reference, open loops way better than the previous model could. And then we have the Claude Fable inside of Night. So we have where it, like I was just saying, it understands the context, it can reason across better, and it can take more intelligent actions. So every time the model updates, our system, our AI operating system, my Night operating system gets smarter every single time. So the way that Claude Fable in particular turns memory into motion is the second brain is the task, plans, drafts, and automations rules. With the second brain, which we've already gone over, it sends it to Claude Fable, which is essentially the reasoning layer. Let me just show you guys what this actually looks like. Okay, so in here, basically what we can do is we can go to the Obsidian folder. So Obsidian holds 100% of all of my context, and that's all that I need to plug into that operating system because it's a local file on my computer. It's a folder technically with a ton of files inside of it. All I have to do is bring up Obsidian. It's the same thing with Codex. But in, Claude, for example, you can't really do that. Like there's no way to pull up a local file, so it cannot have access to all of that memory and all of that context. And so that right there is the second brain. And then the operating system is where Claude Fable comes in. So it can help me digest the second brain, go through everything, decisions, notes, etc., find out what matters, summarize messy context, and it can basically help me with much higher quality outputs than I would get if I was just using the cloud version. And so the shift here is that AI operates. It doesn't just answer. So like I've been saying, the normal way that most people use AI is you have a question, feed it into AI, and you get an answer. It's a very basic back and forth. But with my operating system that I've set up, there's files, there's tasks, calendar notes. I mean, all of this stuff is inside of that Obsidian, and it's able to reference it. And so no longer am I just asking a question and getting an answer. Now I can have it go do work. I can have it go set calendar updates. I can have it reach out to people. I can have it check priorities. I can have it do a lot of different things. Most importantly, it's going to be grounded in the context of my life and of my work. So it's not going to make anything up. So not only is it agentic, with the web, you can't really do too much from an agentic perspective. From the apps, I mean, it can go and run. It can go do a lot of stuff. It can take over your computer. It can take over your browser, and it can get to work incredibly well. And, that's just a couple reasons why we want to always use the operating system, but we also want to use the agentic tools, so Claude Code or Codex, whatever you prefer, Cursor, etc. It's so much better than a chatbot. And besides like a simple Google question that I would just Google, where's the best food here? What's the capital of this state? I'm not really going to use the cloud chatbot almost ever. And so part of the system is having a daily loop. So you want to have a daily loop. So every morning I have what's called a daily brief, and I can actually show you this. So there's a couple routines and scheduled tasks that I have. You can do this in Cowork or in Claude Code or in Codex. They call them automations in Codex. But basically, in here, I can say, hey, your Sam Knight's morning brief agent, run every weekday at 7 a.m. Eastern. I should change that to weekend for sure. Run every day. Okay. And so anyways, you can basically and you can create this prompt inside of Claude, by the way. All you have to do is give it the information. But essentially what this is doing is it's going through all my calls, client subfolders, refreshing client dashboards, extracting intel, the last 24 hours of meetings, last 24 hours of Slack messages, and it is going to send me a Slack message with the update. So I can just go in there, I can check it, I can see what's top of funnel, I can see what I need to work on, I can see what I need to focus on. And this is a great way to capture as much context as you need to start the day. It can also, you can create automations and scheduled tasks that can reason. So it can digest all of the information from the previous day, and it can reason on what should we do? Like, okay, here's all this information, but what are our next steps? And so the to-do list feature that I created inside of this routine has increased significantly and gotten way, way, way better. You can also have it audit your task. And so, hey, where can we clean up these tasks? Where can we improve these tasks? And so basically what you have is this system that loops daily, repeats daily. The context builds on itself and gets better. The tasks get better. The content gets better. The client follow-up gets better. Everything gets better over time because we have it on this self-repeating loop, kind of like this self-healing loop, if you will. So if you think about it, this is really a compounding AI operating system. And this works for anyone, whether you have a job, whether you have a business, whether you're just a regular person that just wants to get more use out of AI. The way you can use this is step one, you want to use the system. So you want to create the operating system. You want to create the second brain system. You want to notice where there's friction, where there might be lacking context, lacking information. You want to add instructions. You want to improve the structure. You want to get better outputs, and you want to ultimately trust it with more work. And so the biggest thing I would say is that the way this system gets better is by using it more and more and more. The more you can use the system, the better it's going to become. And I think this is a really important point because we get so caught up in learning everything and every single minute detail, but a lot of the growth and a lot of the expertise comes through just getting your hands dirty and figuring it out. So I'll post the GitHub repo that you can use. You can download that. You can literally give the link to Claude Code or Codex and say, hey, create my second brain in this same structure. I'll link that below. But basically from there, what you need to do is you just need to keep using it and keep trying to get more and more use out of it. And it will get better. And then new models will come out and it will improve even more. So the minimum viable night or the minimum viable operating system that I would recommend is you have your inbox with raw notes, you have your projects with active work, you have text task for your next actions, you have reference for reusable knowledge, and you have AI instructions, which is essentially how I work. Now, you don't have to worry about that if you just download this GitHub repo, because it's going to have all of this in here, and then you can put it into your system. But this is kind of like the minimum viable AI operating system that I would recommend. And before you chase more tools, I really would recommend a smaller structure. So one place for notes, one place for tasks, one place for projects, one instruction file, which would be your Claude.md file or your agents.md file, and then one daily review prompt, because this will lead to better output than having this stuff scattered all across the place everywhere. So in my opinion, the future is not necessarily about better prompts. It is about better systems for AI to think inside of. And once again, that's everything from my own personal information, the task I need to do, the automations I've created, the outputs I need, the second brain that holds all the context of my life and business, and then Claude Fable or whatever the best model is of the time. Another benefit of this is we're not locked into vendor lock. So we can continue to grow, we can continue to evolve with whatever the best model on the market is, and therefore we're not going to be beholden to it. So my recommendation is to start building your AI operating system today. You want to capture your context, you want to give the AI structure, and you want to let the system improve day after day after day. This is the blueprint that I've created. Once again, if we look at Obsidian, we can see, I mean, it's incredibly detailed. Sometimes I wonder if it's too detailed, but at the end of the day, like, it holds all this context well, and I've yet to have a situation where it broke down and it wasn't able to understand what I needed or go find the information that I needed. So I think I have a long ways to go here. I think these systems are going to continue to get better, but the point is, whether you use Claude Code, Codex, an open source model, you want to have that second brain. You want to have the AI operating system, which is like the skills and tools and stuff on top of it. You want to bring them all together. You want to have it heal and self-improve every single day, and then you will start to actually maximize the usage that you're getting out of AI, whether it's Codex, Claude Code, etc. And by the way, if this video was helpful, I have a lot of other videos that are helpful. I would appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. I try to provide a lot of value for people that might not be engineers, and some of this stuff might be intimidating, but it's really not that intimidating. So my goal is to keep updating 2 to 3 videos a week. Would love it if you check them out. I appreciate you guys coming, and I'll see you in the next one.